The man with a hole in the middle of his floor. He was a middle-aged man. He did an ordinary job. And he lived alone because he found it easier. He found people too difficult. And it was safer to live by himself. And he was well liked around the places that he went to. The doctor's surgery, the supermarket, the bank. They knew his name, but that was all. No one really knew anything about him. One of the things that no one knew was that in the middle of his living room, he had an enormous hole. It was about the size of a medium-sized Persian rug. Perfectly rectangular, silent, and deep. It had always been there, and he never questioned it. He never looked down into it. He never spoke into it to see if there was an echo. He just walked around it and lived with it. His TV was on one side of the room, the hole was in the middle, his lounge was on the other side. That was his life. One thing he had in the same room was a photograph, a famed photograph on the mantelpiece. Now, this photograph was from his youth. He couldn't remember it being taken, but it was like proof of something. He didn't even know what, but he loved it. It was one of his greatest possessions, and he often looked at it. One day, out of the blue, there was a slight earth tremor, and the mantelpiece shook just enough that the picture fell forward and fell off the mantelpiece just as he was coming into the room with a cup of tea. And to his horror, he watched it bounce and then fall into the hole. He reached in, dropping his tea as he did, and reached down a hand trying to grab it, but all he saw was the picture falling into the darkness. He didn't even hear it hit the ground. He sat there all night, wondering what to do. He couldn't sleep. He had TVs in various rooms, computers and stuff. All of these were like umbilical cords with which he watched the rest of the world. But the world had no idea who he was, nor did he care. Anyway, in the morning, he decided it was time. He had to get his picture back. So he went to various stores all day. Wood supply stores, mountaineering supply stores, until at the end of the day, in the late afternoon, he came home and he started to build an A-framed tripod out of the wood he'd bought and went right over the hole, reaching just the top of his living room. I've got ants going crazy. And he then, at the apex of the summit of the tripod, he had a big pulley that he'd installed. And he was wearing mountaineer gear, yellow vest, yellow hat, yellow hard hat, and a pulley, another little pulley around his groin. And there was a huge purple rope, incredibly long purple rope, that went up through attached to his waist, then went up through the pulley, and then coiled up on his living room floor. And at the end of it was a huge knot. It was a brake knot. So if anything happened, the brake knot would hold him. He couldn't fall all the way. He couldn't fall off it. He thought that was a clever idea. And then, at about 9 o'clock, he finally summed up the courage. He got on his abseil thing. He threw the rest of the rope down the hole, hoping to see if it would reach a point. Got ants going nuts. If it would reach a point where it would sort of slacken because it had hit the floor of the hole, but it hadn't. It still just dangled straight, like a suicidal anaconda. Anyway, he wanted his picture, so he swung out in the front of it. He swung out over the hole, holding on to the purple rope, the other side of the purple rope. And bit by bit, as the pulley squealed, he lowered himself into the hole. Now, the first thing he found was really interesting. The hole had started in his teens, early teens. It had one of the first, like handholds, carved into the side of the wall. You couldn't see them from the living room, but once you were down, they were about a feet or a few feet apart. Now, the first one was dated 12 years, 10 months. Then down 12 years, 11 months. And down it went, down and down and down in time increments. By the time he'd reached 36 years and 2 months, he realized he was exhausted. He looked down with the torch he had in his helmet, and he could not see the bottom. But what he realized was, because he'd left it very late to do this, very late in life, I have to move for these ants who do not like me sitting here. He decided it was too late to try go down. He'd have to find another way. He wasn't sure that he had the strength to crawl all the way back up, to pull his way all the way back up, but he had to try. But then, to his horror, he heard a crack, and he looked up. He looked right up at the tripod that was above him and realized it was breaking. He must have chosen a weak wood. Then, a greater crack, and then to his horror, he realized it was going to collapse. So he grabbed onto the handholds. I think he was 36 and something months, and he just held there, clutching to the wall, as the tripod collapsed and fell into the hole. It actually went careering past him. Didn't hit him, but went careering past. And for a moment he thought, well, that's good. At least I'm safe from that. But then he remembered the brake knot, and the rope went right through the pulley, and then grabbed him and just pulled him off the wall and pulled him into the hole. And the last thing he saw before he fell unconscious was the little square hole just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And then he hit the floor and passed out. He didn't know what time it was when he woke up, but he was all broken. Broken bones, legs, everything, whatever it was, he was in a bad shape. And he was laying on the broken tripod. And far above him, really far, far above him, was a little light that he knew was his living room. Next to him on the wall, once he got his torch working again, was a switch, like a wooden switch he could pull down. He looked at it for a long time and thought that's his only option. But then before he pulled it, he decided to find what he'd come for. And he searched around with a bloodied hand underneath him and through the tripod until he finally found the frame. It was all smashed, the glass was all broken, but the picture was still in it. He brought it up, he looked at it, he kissed it, and then he turned it over just to see if anyone had written anything on it. And to his horror, he found out that this was the picture that had come with the frame. As he sat there looking at it, or lay there looking at it, he reached out to the switch in fury and panic and complete despair and pulled it down, hoping that help would come and rescue him from this hole. But instead, all he heard, far above him, was the ee of some wheels. And as he was watching up, he watched the hole close above the ceiling of the hole, close above him, nice and steady, until it sealed him in, tighter than a Tupperware bowl.